Captain Jake Morrison walked across the bridge of the TES Liberty as his crew worked at their stations. The massive human warship moved slowly through the dark space near the edge of human territory. For 3 months now, they had been doing the same boring job of watching for pirates and checking on trade ships that passed through this area. Jake was getting tired of the routine, but he knew someone had to keep the space lanes safe: Lisa. Parker sat at her communication station listening to the usual radio chatter from cargo ships and mining vessels. She had been doing this job for 2 years and could tell the difference between a normal call and something important just by the tone. Today felt different, though. Her equipment was picking up strange signals that did not match anything in their computer files. "Captain Morrison, sir," Lisa called out from her station. "I am getting something weird on the long-range scanners. It sounds like a distress call, but the language is not in our database." Jake walked over to her station and looked at the display screen. The signal was very weak and kept cutting in and out like it was coming from very far away. "Can you clean it up and make it stronger?" he asked Dr. Matthew Kane. Heard the conversation from the science station and came over to help. Matthew was the smartest person on the ship when it came to alien languages and technology. He had learned 6 different alien languages in the past 5 years since humanity started meeting other species in space. "Let me work on this," Matthew said as he plugged his portable computer into Lisa's station. "The signal pattern looks familiar, but I have never seen this exact type before." Sophie Bell looked up from her navigation station where she had been plotting their course for the next patrol route. "I can try to figure out where the signal is coming from if you want, Captain." Jake nodded and watched as his crew worked together to solve the puzzle. This was why he loved commanding the Liberty. His people were smart and always ready to help each other when something important came up. After 20 minutes of work, Matthew managed to clear up the signal enough to start translating it. His face went pale as he read the words appearing on his screen. "Captain, you need to hear this right now." The bridge went quiet as Matthew played the cleaned-up message through the ship's speakers. Even though it was translated into English by the computer, the fear in the alien voice was easy to hear. "This is the Kalari Republic emergency broadcast to any ships in range. Our worlds are under attack by unknown forces. They call themselves the Void Syndicate. Our defense fleets have been destroyed. They are bombing our cities and killing our people. Please help us. We do not have much time left." The message repeated 3 more times before cutting off completely. Jake felt his stomach tighten as he thought about what they had just heard. The Kalari were the friendly aliens who had helped humanity fight off a deadly disease 6 months ago. Their medicine had saved millions of human lives. "Sophie, plot a course to Kalari space right now," Jake ordered. "Lisa, send an emergency message to Admiral Bennett and tell her what we found." "Sir, that will take us outside of our patrol area," his second-in-command Larry Johnson pointed out. "Should we wait for orders from Fleet Command first?" Jake looked at the star chart showing Kalari territory. It was 3 days away at maximum speed. "No, we go now. If someone was attacking Earth, I would want the Kalari to come help us without waiting around." Lisa worked quickly to send the message to Admiral Grace Bennett, who commanded the 3rd Fleet from her flagship TES Defiance. The Admiral was known throughout the human military as someone who made fast decisions and cared about doing the right thing. Within an hour, they received a reply from Admiral Bennett. Her message was short and direct. "Liberty, proceed to Kalari space immediately. 3rd Fleet is coming to support you. Do not engage enemy forces alone. Gather intelligence and wait for backup." Jake ordered the ship to maximum speed and felt the engines vibrate through the deck as they accelerated. The Liberty was one of the newest ships in the human fleet, with powerful weapons and strong shields. But Jake knew they might be facing something much bigger than one ship could handle. Dr. Kane continued working on the Kalari message and found more information hidden in the signal. "Captain, I found technical data about the enemy ships. The Kalari managed to scan them before their fleet was destroyed. The data showed ships that were much larger than anything humanity had ever built. The weapons they used seemed to be able to destroy entire planets." Jake realized this was not just an attack on the Kalari. This Void Syndicate might be planning to attack every species in this part of the galaxy. As the Liberty raced through space toward Kalari territory, Jake called his senior officers to the briefing room. They needed to make plans for what they might find when they arrived. The Kalari had been good friends to humanity, and now they needed help. Jake was determined to do everything possible to save them, even if it meant fighting an enemy they did not understand. The ship's computer calculated they would reach Kalari space in 62 hours. Jake hoped they would not be too late to make a difference. The thought of an entire alien civilization being wiped out made him angry. Humanity had learned to value their alien friends and would not let them be destroyed without a fight. Admiral Bennett's fleet was still a day behind them, but Jake knew the Liberty would have to scout ahead and see what they were facing, whatever this Void Syndicate wanted. They would learn that humans did not abandon their friends when trouble came calling. The news about the Kalari attack spread quickly through human space as Admiral Bennett sent reports to Earth. President Nicole Carter called an emergency meeting at the World Government Building in New York. Military leaders from every continent came to discuss what humanity should do about this new threat. General Frank Hughes stood at the big table in the war room looking at star maps that showed Kalari territory. "We do not know anything about this Void Syndicate," he said to the other leaders. "They could have thousands of ships and weapons we have never seen before." Admiral Victoria Stone nodded as she studied the reports from Captain Morrison's ship, Liberty. "The Kalari helped us when the Red Death Plague almost killed half our population. We owe them our lives. We cannot just ignore their call for help." Senator Paul Green stood up and pointed at the map. "But we also cannot risk the safety of Earth and all our colonies for one alien race. What if this syndicate decides to attack us next? We should focus on defending our own people first." President Carter listened to both sides of the argument before making her decision. She had been elected because people trusted her to make hard choices when the time came. The Kalari are our friends and allies. If we abandon them now, then no other alien species will ever trust us again. We go to help them. Dr. Emma Foster from the Science Council agreed with the president. The data from the Liberty shows these syndicate ships use weapons that can crack planets. If they finish destroying the Kalari, then they will probably come for us next anyway. Better to fight them now while we have allies. At Luna shipyards near Earth's moon, Chief Engineer Carlos Rivera got the order to prepare the fleet for war. He had been building human warships for 15 years, but this would be the biggest challenge he had ever faced. The ships needed every weapon and defense system they could carry. Carlos worked with his team of engineers to install new plasma cannons on Admiral Bennett's ships. They also added quantum torpedoes that could punch through the strongest alien armor. The experimental shield generators would protect the ships from energy weapons, but nobody knew if they would stop whatever the syndicate was using. Marine Colonel Danny Walsh gathered his best soldiers at the training base on Mars. These men and women would have to board enemy ships and fight aliens they had never seen before. Danny had fought in the border wars against human pirates, but this would be completely different. Major Kate Sullivan led her assault team through combat drills in the practice ships. Her soldiers learned how to fight in zero gravity and how to cut through alien metal with their plasma torches. They studied every piece of information about syndicate technology that Dr. Kane had found in the Kalari message. Captain Rick Taylor commanded the Special Forces unit that would handle the most dangerous missions. His team practiced boarding actions and learned how to disable alien computer systems. They did not know what they would find inside enemy ships, but they would be ready for anything. Back on the Liberty, Dr. Kane made an important discovery while studying the Kalari distress signal. Hidden in the message were tactical files that showed how syndicate ships moved and fought. "Captain Morrison, this is incredible," he said. "The Kalari managed to record everything before their fleet was destroyed." Jake looked at the new information. On the main screen, the enemy ships used something called dark energy weapons that could pass right through normal shields and armor. Most alien races built their defenses to stop lasers and missiles, but these new weapons worked completely differently. "This explains why the Kaleri fleet was destroyed so quickly," said Commander Larry Johnson. "Their shields were useless against these dark energy beams." Lieutenant Amy Clark studied the weapon data from her position at the tactical station. "Sir, our plasma cannons and kinetic railguns might work better than energy shields. These weapons seem designed to fight other aliens, not humans." Dr. Tony Martinez came to the bridge with medical reports about the Kaleri survivors they had picked up from escape pods. "Captain, the aliens who escaped say the Syndicate does not just destroy military targets. They seem to enjoy killing civilians and destroying everything they find." Jake felt anger building inside him as he thought about an enemy that would attack helpless people. Humans had learned to respect other species and protect those who could not defend themselves. This syndicate sounded like everything humanity opposed. On Earth, civilian scientists worked with military planners to develop new tactics for fighting the syndicate. Dr. Rachel Brooks led a team that studied human advantages over other species. Humans were more flexible in their thinking and better at adapting to new situations during battle. "Most alien species follow rigid battle plans," she explained to the military commanders. "Humans are better at changing tactics quickly when something unexpected happens. This could be our biggest advantage against a technologically superior enemy." The Third Fleet finished loading supplies and weapons at Luna shipyards. 37 ships, including battleships, cruisers, and destroyers, would make the journey to Kaleri space. It was the largest human military force ever assembled for combat operations. Admiral Bennett held a final briefing for all ship captains before they departed. "We are about to face an enemy that has already destroyed one civilization. They have better technology and more ships than us, but they have never fought humans before, and they do not understand what we are capable of when we fight for our friends." Captain Morrison received new orders to continue scouting ahead of the main fleet. The Liberty would be the first human ship to see the Syndicate forces and would have to gather intelligence for the coming battle. Jake knew his crew was ready, but he worried they might not be enough to save the Kaleri people. As the human fleet prepared to leave for battle, President Carter addressed the people of Earth on television. "Today we go to help our alien friends who saved us from disease and death. We go not as conquerors but as protectors. We will show this void syndicate that humanity stands with those who need our help." The ships of the Third Fleet activated their engines and began the journey that would change everything for both humans and aliens throughout the galaxy. The TES Liberty dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of Kaleri territory, and Jake Morrison felt his heart sink at what he saw. 3 planets that had once been green and full of life were now dark rocks floating in space. The surfaces still glowed red from the heat of orbital bombardment that had turned entire continents into molten glass. "My God," whispered Sophie Bell from her navigation station as she looked at the sensor readings. "There is nothing left alive down there. The atmosphere has been completely burned away." Dr. Kane worked frantically at his science station to scan for any signs of Kaleri survivors. "Captain, I am detecting several small ships moving slowly between the dead planets. They look like refugee vessels, but their engines are failing." Jake immediately ordered the Liberty to intercept the refugee ships. "Lisa, open a channel to those ships and tell them we are here to help. Medical team, get ready to receive wounded aliens." The first Kaleri ship they reached was barely holding together. Its hull was cracked and scorched from weapons fire and the life support systems were running out of power. Dr. Martinez led a team of medics over to the alien ship to help the survivors. When the Kaleri refugees were brought aboard the Liberty, Jake was shocked by what he saw. These peaceful plant-eating aliens looked like they had not slept or eaten in days. Their large eyes were filled with terror, and many of them had injuries from the attacks on their worlds through the translation computers. The Kaleri told horrible stories about the Void Syndicate. The enemy had not just destroyed military targets, but had seemed to enjoy hunting down civilian families and destroying hospitals and schools. They had broadcast messages saying that all inferior species would be removed from the galaxy. Chief Xenobiologist Dr. Linda White worked with the Kaleri survivors to learn more about their attackers. The Syndicate is not just one species, explained an old Kaleri scientist named Veltar. They are many different aliens who believe only the strongest should be allowed to live. They came without warning, said another survivor. Our leaders tried to surrender and offer them anything they wanted, but they just laughed and continued killing. They said we were too weak to deserve life. Jake felt anger growing inside him as he listened to these stories. The Kaleri had never hurt anyone and had spent their time growing food and making medicine to help other species. They did not deserve this kind of treatment from anyone. Admiral Bennett arrived with the Third Fleet, just as more refugee ships were spotted fleeing from deeper in Kaleri space. The human warships immediately began rescue operations while scout ships moved ahead to look for Syndicate forces. Captain Jerry Brooks commanded the fast corvette TES Ranger and had been ordered to check on a Kaleri colony world called Haven. The planet had 2 million Kaleri living on it and was one of their main agricultural centers that grew food for the entire region. When Brooks arrived at Haven, he found 12 large dark ships in orbit around the planet. The enemy vessels looked like nothing in human records. They were angular and seemed to absorb light, making them difficult to see clearly. Energy beams were firing down at the planet's surface, destroying cities and farmland. Brooks knew he should wait for backup, but innocent people were dying below. All weapons target the lead enemy ship, he ordered his crew. We are going in. The TES Ranger was much smaller than the Syndicate ships, but it was fast and carried powerful plasma cannons. Brooks used the ship's speed to attack from unexpected angles, while staying out of range of the enemy's main weapons. The first Syndicate ship exploded when the Ranger's plasma cannons punched through its shields. The enemy had not expected human weapons to be so effective. Brooks quickly destroyed 2 more ships before the others turned to face him. Communications. Officer Sam Wright intercepted enemy transmissions during the battle. The Syndicate forces were talking to each other in panicked voices. They are asking what species we are, Sam reported. They have never seen ships or weapons like ours before. The remaining Syndicate ships fired their dark energy weapons at the Ranger, but Brooks used evasive maneuvers that confused the enemy gunners. Human pilots were trained to fly unpredictably, while alien races usually followed standard flight patterns that made them easy targets. Brooks managed to damage 3 more enemy ships before his own vessel took a hit that knocked out the main engines. Sir, we have hull breaches on decks 4 and 5, reported his damage control officer. Life support is failing. Just as the Syndicate ships moved in to finish off the Ranger, Admiral Bennett arrived with the main fleet. 20 human warships opened fire on the enemy vessels and quickly destroyed the survivors. The Battle of Haven lasted only 15 minutes, but it gave humanity valuable intelligence about their new enemy. The rescued Kaleri from Haven told the humans that the Syndicate had been systematically destroying every world in their territory. The enemy seemed to have unlimited ships and resources. They would attack a planet for days just to make sure nothing survived. Dr. Kane analyzed the wreckage of the destroyed Syndicate ships and made important discoveries. Captain, their technology is definitely more advanced than ours, but they build their ships to fight other aliens. Human weapons work differently than what they are used to. Admiral Bennett called a meeting of all ship captains to share what they had learned. The enemy has more ships than us and better technology, but they are not used to fighting humans. We think in 3 dimensions while most aliens fight in flat formations. Long-range sensors detected a massive Syndicate fleet moving toward the Kaleri homeworld. Intelligence reports suggested there were over 2,000 enemy ships heading for the final battle. The Kaleri government had already evacuated their capital city, but millions of civilians remained on the planet. This is it, Admiral Bennett told her commanders. If we lose this battle, then the Kaleri civilization dies and the Syndicate will probably come for Earth next. We have to stop them here. Jake Morrison felt the weight of responsibility as he prepared the Liberty for what might be the most important battle in human history. His crew had proven they could fight the Syndicate and win, but the enemy was bringing everything they had for this final assault. The human fleet moved toward Kaleri Prime knowing they were outnumbered more than 50 to 1, but they also knew something the Syndicate did not understand. Humans never gave up when they were fighting to protect innocent people, and they got more dangerous when the odds were against them. The human fleet arrived at Kaleri Prime to find the planet surrounded by more enemy ships than anyone had ever seen in one place. Admiral Bennett looked at her tactical display and saw over 2,000 Syndicate vessels arranged in perfect formation around the Kaleri homeworld. The enemy was preparing for the final attack that would end an entire civilization. "Admiral, we are getting distress calls from the planet's surface," reported the communications officer aboard the TES Defiance. "The Kaleri government says they have 40 million people who cannot be evacuated in time." Bennett studied the enemy formation and made quick decisions that would determine the fate of two species. "Morrison, take your strike group and punch through their blockade. Get down to the planet and start evacuating civilians. I will take the main battle line and hit their command ships." Jake Morrison acknowledged the orders and led 12 ships toward the weakest point in the enemy formation. The TS Liberty and her escorts would have to fight through hundreds of Syndicate ships to reach the planet below. It seemed impossible, but Jake knew they had to try. Colonel Danny Walsh prepared his Marines for ground operations on Kaleri Prime. "Listen up, people," he told his soldiers over the comm system. "We are going down to a planet full of scared aliens who are counting on us to save them. Do not let them down." The space battle began when Admiral Bennett ordered her battleships to open fire on the Syndicate command vessels. Human plasma cannons and quantum torpedoes lit up the darkness as they struck enemy shields. The Syndicate forces responded with their dark energy weapons that could punch through most alien defenses. Commander Helen Price coordinated the fleet movements from her position on the flagship bridge. She used three-dimensional tactics that confused the enemy commanders who expected flat battle formations. Human ships attacked from above and below while spinning to avoid the dark energy beams. Captain Jack Peters commanded the heavy destroyer Tay's Vengeance and saw an opportunity to break the enemy formation. "All power to forward weapons," he ordered his crew. "We are going straight through their center line." Peters led his ship on a suicide run directly into the heart of the Syndicate fleet. The Vengeance fired everything it had while enemy ships concentrated their fire on the lone human destroyer. Peters managed to destroy dozens of enemy vessels before his ship exploded in a massive ball of light. The explosion from the Vengeance created a gap in the enemy formation that Morrison used to break through to the planet. "All ships follow me." "Down," Jake ordered as the Liberty dove toward Kaleri Prime, with enemy ships chasing close behind. On the planet's surface, the evacuation had become desperate. Dr. Martinez set up medical stations at the spaceports while Kaleri healers worked alongside human doctors to treat wounded civilians. The alien families waited in long lines hoping there would be room on the transport ships. Major Kate Sullivan's Marines established defensive positions around the evacuation sites. Her soldiers had never fought on an alien world before, but they quickly adapted to the different gravity and atmosphere. The Kaleri civilians looked at the human warriors with hope in their large eyes. The first Syndicate ground forces landed near the capital city and began advancing toward the spaceports. These were not normal soldiers but biomechanical constructs that had been designed for killing and nothing else. They stood 3 meters tall and had weapons built into their arms. Captain Rick Taylor led his Special Forces team in the first ground battle against the Syndicate constructs. "Concentrate fire on their center mass," he ordered his soldiers. "Do not let them reach the civilian areas." The human plasma rifles proved effective against the enemy constructs, but there were too many of them. For every construct the Marines destroyed, 2 more appeared to take its place. The evacuation sites were in danger of being overrun. Dr. Kane made an important discovery while analyzing wreckage from a destroyed Syndicate ship. "Captain, the enemy uses a centralized command network," he reported to Morrison. "If we can find and destroy their command ship, the entire fleet will be paralyzed." Sophie Bell worked frantically at her navigation station to locate the command ship among thousands of enemy vessels. "It has to be somewhere in the asteroid belt," she concluded. That is the only place with enough cover to hide something that important. Jake realized this was their only chance to win the battle. Admiral Bennett, this is Morrison. We have found a way to stop the entire enemy fleet, but I need to take the Liberty to the asteroid belt. Bennett's voice came back over the cum-filled. With static from weapons fire, negative Morrison. I need every ship here to protect the evacuation transports. Admiral, if we do not destroy that command ship, then everyone dies anyway, Jake replied. Give me 2 hours and I will end this battle. After a moment, Bennett agreed to the plan. Take 3 ships and go. But if you fail, then the Kaleri civilization dies with you. Jake selected his fastest escorts and led them away from the main battle toward the asteroid belt. Behind them, the space battle continued as Admiral Bennett's ships held off thousands of enemy vessels. Every minute that passed meant more human ships were destroyed. In the asteroid belt, the human ships used stealth technology to avoid detection. The Syndicate command ship was hidden behind layers of defensive platforms and cloaked by advanced technology. Finding it would be like looking for one specific rock among millions. There, Sophie called out as her senses detected an anomaly. Large artificial object bearing 27 Mark IV. It is definitely not an asteroid. The Liberty and her escorts approached the hidden command ship using the natural cover of the asteroid field. Jake ordered silent running to avoid enemy sensors while they got into attack position. Everything depended on the next few minutes. Colonel Walsh's Marines prepared for the most important boarding action in human history. They would have to fight their way through alien corridors and disable the command systems that controlled thousands of enemy ships. The fate of both humans and Kaleri rested in their hands. As the Liberty moved closer to the command ship, Jake thought about all the people counting on them. The Kaleri families waiting for evacuation, the human crews fighting impossible odds, and the billions of people back on Earth who did not even know this battle was happening. All ships attack now, Jake ordered as the Liberty opened fire on the command ship's defenses. The final phase of the battle for Kaleri Prime had begun. The TES Liberty fired everything it had at the Syndicate command ship, while enemy defensive platforms returned fire with deadly accuracy. Jake Morrison watched as his ship's shields flickered under the massive energy barrage, but he knew they had to keep attacking. The fate of 2 civilizations depended on the next few minutes. Hull breach on Deck 7, reported Damage Control Officer Lieutenant Pete Harris. We are losing atmosphere fast. Seal that section and keep firing, Jake ordered as he watched the command ship's shields finally collapse under the concentrated human assault. All Marines prepare for boarding action. Colonel Danny Walsh led his assault troops through the breach torn in the enemy ship's hull by the Liberty's plasma cannons. The Marines moved quickly through alien corridors that seemed designed for creatures much larger than humans. Emergency lighting cast strange shadows on the metallic walls. Stay together and watch for traps, Walsh ordered his soldiers as they advanced toward the ship's control center. The corridors were eerily quiet except for the sound of their boots on the metal deck plates. It felt like walking through a tomb. The first enemy they encountered was not what anyone expected. Instead of alien soldiers, they found various species that looked terrified and confused. These were the crews that had been forced to serve the Syndicate leadership under threat of death to their families. Please do not hurt us, said a reptilian alien through the translation device. We never wanted to fight anyone. The Syndicate leaders made us do it. Walsh realized that many of the enemy forces were actually prisoners who had been forced into military service. Secure these people, but treat them as refugees, not enemies, he ordered his Marines. The real leaders are probably deeper in the ship. Dr. Kane worked with the Liberty's computer systems to hack into the command ship's data networks. What he found shocked him more than anything else in this war. Captain, the Syndicate has been planning this for decades. They have target lists with hundreds of species marked for extermination. Jake felt sick as he looked at the data files that showed the enemy's true plan. The Kaleri were just the beginning. The Syndicate intended to wipe out every species they considered inferior and claim their worlds for themselves. Humanity was listed as target number 7 on their priority list. Commander Larry Johnson coordinated the assault on the ship's command center while enemy defensive systems tried to stop the human Marines. Colonel Walsh, you need to hurry. The command ship is trying to activate some kind of self-destruct system. Walsh and his team reached the main control room to find the Syndicate's true leaders waiting for them. These were not the desperate prisoners they had encountered in the corridors, but creatures that radiated pure evil. They looked at the humans with contempt and hatred. "You inferior Deathworlders cannot stop what we have started," hissed the lead. "Syndicate Commander? Even if you destroy this ship, our fleets will continue the purification of the galaxy." "Not if I can help it," Walsh replied as his Marines disabled the enemy leaders and began working on the control systems. The command center was filled with technology that controlled thousands of ships spread across multiple star systems. Dr. Kane's voice came over the comm system. "Colonel, I'm uploading a virus into their network. When you activate the shutdown sequence, it will disable every Syndicate ship connected to this command network." The shutdown process took 5 agonizing minutes while the command ship shook under fire from its own defensive platforms. Walsh watched the status displays as thousands of enemy vessels across the galaxy suddenly went dark. The Syndicate's centralized command structure had become their greatest weakness. Back at Calari Prime, the effect was immediate and dramatic. Admiral Bennett watched in amazement as hundreds of enemy ships around the planet simply stopped functioning. Their weapons went silent and their engines shut down, leaving them floating helplessly in space. "All ships cease fire," Bennett ordered. As she realized what had happened, "Morrison, you did it. The entire enemy fleet is disabled." Major Kate Sullivan's Marines on the planet's surface saw the biomechanical constructs suddenly freeze in place like broken toys. The constructs had been controlled by the same network that operated the ships, without commands from the command ship. They were just expensive scrap metal. The Calari civilians cheered as they realized the attack had stopped. Families that had been separated during the evacuation were reunited while human medical teams continued treating the wounded. The nightmare was finally over. Captain Rick Taylor's Special Forces team secured the abandoned Syndicate equipment and found something unexpected. Many of the enemy species that had been forced to serve the Syndicate leadership began surrendering and asking for protection from their former masters. Dr. Emma Foster arrived on the first diplomatic ship to interview the Syndicate prisoners. What she learned changed everything humanity thought about the war. Most of these species were enslaved by the Syndicate years ago, she reported. Their families were held hostage to ensure their cooperation. President Nicole Carter addressed the galaxy from the United Nations building on Earth. Her speech was broadcast to every inhabited world and translated into hundreds of languages. "Today we have proven that evil cannot triumph when good people stand together. Humanity offers protection to all species that seek freedom from oppression." The response was immediate and overwhelming. Dozens of alien civilizations that had been hiding from the Syndicate came forward to request alliance with humanity. Earth became the center of a growing coalition dedicated to protecting the weak from those who would harm them. Admiral Bennett was promoted to head of the new Galactic Defense Force that would be based on Earth. The human military had proven itself capable of defeating superior technology through superior tactics and determination. Other species wanted to learn from human commanders. Captain Morrison received command of the new exploration fleet that would seek out other civilizations threatened by groups like the Syndicate. The Liberty became the flagship of humanity's expansion into the wider galaxy as protectors and allies rather than conquerors. The Calari Republic offered to share all their advanced technology with humanity in gratitude for saving their civilization. Their medical knowledge and agricultural techniques would help human colonies spread across the galaxy. The alliance between the two species became a model for others to follow. Dr. Kane established the Galactic Studies Institute to research the technologies and cultures of the many species now seeking human protection. The institute became a center of learning where humans and aliens work together to build a better future for everyone. Colonel Walsh was given command of the new multi-species Marine Corps that would include soldiers from dozens of different worlds. The unit would specialize in protecting civilians and fighting against oppression wherever it was found in the galaxy. As Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the Liberty, looking out at the stars, he thought about how much had changed in just a few weeks. Humanity had started as a small species barely known to the galaxy. Now they were recognized as the defenders of freedom and justice among the stars. The distress call from the Kalari had led to humanity discovering their true purpose in the galaxy. They were not just explorers or traders, but protectors of those who could not protect themselves. The Deathworld that had created them had also given them the strength to stand against evil wherever they found it. War had indeed come to the galaxy, but humanity had proven they were ready for it. The stars were no longer dark and empty, but filled with hope for a future where all species could live in peace under the protection of those willing to fight for what was right.